Lindsay, first of all, glad you and your family are doing well. How was it when you learned that you all had, in fact, been exposed to COVID-19?
The girls, my girls were with their father when he got a phone call that he had been exposed at work. So the girls came home and thankfully were all symptom free and feeling fine. But it's very scary. We've been pretty hardcore quarantined since March. My youngest daughter, who's in third grade, is high risk. She has a very random lung condition that she cannot, she's not any more susceptible to getting COVID than the rest of us, but she is not as likely to respond to treatments if she is to catch that. If it is something that affects her the way her pulmonologist thinks it might. But yeah, it was definitely scary. We definitely have a kind of a heightened sense of anxiety in the house, especially considering how careful we've been. And to come this far and be exposed is just kind of emotionally hard. Disappointing, yeah.
Wow, yeah. So we're praying for you. You know that already. We're praying for you.
Yeah. Her father's having mild symptoms. Thankfully, he's okay, but so far we're okay over here. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, keep me posted, but I'm continuing to pray for you. But Lindsay, can you also speak to what your experience as a parent has been like with having children both in, I know you all are quarantined right now, but having children both in person and in virtual environments, and how you as a family actually made a split decision concerning your children?
So we had made a decision early in the summer. My oldest daughter, who's in sixth grade, has some special learning needs that even public school with her IEP really couldn't meet. It was just too many kids in a classroom for her and herself and what she needs. So we switched her last Christmas to a Montessori school where they just have a smaller classroom and everything is very, very individualized. They were kind enough at the end of last school year, or what would have been the end of the last school year, to say like, hey, next year we are reopening unless we're under a shelter in place from the governor. Here's the things that we're going to do to keep your child safe and keep our doors open. And because they're a small private school, they can go above and beyond CDC recommendations. So we were okay with sending her back because of all of the things that were put in place for her. We haven't felt uncomfortable or unsafe sending her to school and her being exposed and coming back and mainly exposing her little sister. We felt pretty good about that. My youngest daughter, who's in third grade, goes to public school, and we had made the decision to have her stay home virtually pretty early in the game. I was looking, before the school system said that they were going to do a virtual option, I was looking at different online schooling options, homeschooling options to see, because it just wasn't safe for her to go back. And our school system in our county actually called it and said everybody's doing virtual learning for at least the first semester. So that made it kind of mandatory for us. But there's been a lot of pushback in the community of people saying, well, kids need to go to school. For us in our house, it works mainly because of our jobs and how flexible they are, and not everybody has that privilege of having flexible jobs in that manner. Also, my oldest daughter is extremely extroverted and she desperately needs people. She had a counseling session over Zoom yesterday, and the counselor wanted to talk to me afterwards. Be like, so she's telling me that she's like yelling thank you to the delivery person through her bedroom window just to have some social interaction. I was like, yeah, we know. So we're aware.
The rest of us are introverts, and poor Mary Kate has just been like, starved. Like, we're all locking ourselves in our rooms, and Mary Kate's marching up and down the hallway.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 of us are very happily placed in our own corners of the house, and then Mary Kate is desperate to have any kind of interaction. So yeah, but my youngest daughter has last year when we went virtual learning in our school system, 3rd grade and up gets computers anyway, like that's just part of their education. And then, so she had her teacher, who is an amazing teacher, just do like YouTube videos and do everything that she could do. We didn't have to go pick up packets, which was nice just because of exposure concerns. But I totally was waiting for it just because I can't remember who said it, but like just the population, I wasn't sure that people were going to have computer access, internet access. And as a social worker, I don't like these kids being home. Like, this is really scary from a social worker perspective. I love having teachers have contact with their kids and knowing that those babies are being loved 5 days of the week for 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on the day. So that, I think that's an adjustment, but my youngest this year now has a computer, or everybody in our school system now has a computer, supposedly. And I think the biggest struggle for her, she's very introverted, so she's happy. She's like your daughter, she's very happy being at home learning. It takes a lot of pressure off. She feels more confident at home. She'd be happy if she could do this for the rest of her life. The problem is she has no typing skills. She's never been handed a computer before. She's been handed tablets before in the school system or at home, but she has no idea how to type. So all of these assignments that are written assignments, she's much more comfortable with pen and paper, just writing it down. And her teacher's wanting her to type in these things. And we didn't realize that she is a tiny little cute 8-year-old boomer who has no idea how to function with a computer. So like her teacher had uploaded a Word document for them just to click on, made it super simple. And Nora had like 15 to 20 of the same documents open and had no idea how to handle that. So just some of like the basic education that comes with the computer. We're doing that as parents, and we're happy to do that, but I do worry about a lot of the kids out there that don't have that attentive parent, that don't have, we're called educational coaches in our school district, that don't have that educational coach sitting there helping them, or that educational coach who is being raised like that as a grandparent and has no idea how to do it either. Right. I cannot imagine being an educator right now on any level, and having to face all the challenges that are happening. I'm thankful in our house we're making it work and we're making the best out of it, but hats off to all you educators out there, because I can't imagine and how worried you are for your kids that, you know, why didn't they show up today, or, you know, why did their screen go dark? It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress. So thank you for doing what you do. And being on the front lines when this is really not what you also signed up for.
And Lindsay, you made, you know, just very valid points about just from the technology standpoint. You're right. You know, I would figure it out. You know, if we didn't know how to do it, I know who to call and how to figure it out. But you have some parents who do not have that. They don't. They have no clue at all what it is their children are even required to do as assignments, long less how they need to actually turn it in. And so, you know, just kind of very valid points. Anasia has the option, of course, to do handwritten, make a picture copy of it and also attach that. But I don't know what our little, you know, she's 5th grade now. So, of course, she has, you know, a little bit more experience with a tablet or a computer or things like that. But for your young ones who haven't been typing, that would be very difficult for them to have an assignment like that, you know. And like you said, there are grandparents who had to step in the role for parents who have to work. And so now they're responsible for getting the child through virtual learning. And, you know, most grandparents are in that baby boomer generation.
Absolutely.
Who, you know, there are some who are, yes, they're technically savvy, but there are some who, like my mom just told me the other day, I need to give her like a Facebook tutorial. She has no idea. People are saying they're messaging her. She has no idea where to find it or anything. And so that's what we're talking about, you know? And so, I mean, it's a definite real thing. And so I think one of the things that I think about that after we hopefully are able to transition, you know, out of the pandemic, where academically are some of our children going to be? There are going to be some who are going to be completely fine, but there are going to be others who are going to truly be evidence of that deficit that happened during the pandemic, that are just not going to be at grade level. I mean, and that's just, you know, me saying that. I'm quite sure our educators who are currently working in the field probably see it in certain students and just kind of, you know, understand certain things. Which y'all agree that that's kind of, you know, a concern that we're going to have moving forward? Anybody have anything you want to share concerning that?
I can say something. One thing for me, moving into the new school year, I took that into consideration when I did my lesson plans, and I think other teachers are doing that as well, where we are thinking about the students' prior knowledge. And I had to think back to, okay, so I teach calculus. Okay, in pre-cal, they stopped at a certain subject in March, and so now I have to start my lessons with the lesson that they stopped, just assuming that they don't know it. Right. And moving forward that way.
And do you feel like most teachers are kind of taking that approach, just kind of starting where we stopped last year versus this is the subject I'm teaching and I'm moving forward regardless?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good.
I'll say in our district, the people at the district level curriculum people, they created documents that are called unfinished learning. And they put in a lot of work over the summer to set up the curriculum for the next teacher. For example, where third grade stopped learning in each subject area, they set up the document for the fourth grade teacher that she picks up, and it's called the unfinished learning document. So that teacher knew exactly where to pick up for those fourth graders who did not get the remainder of the year for those as third graders. So that helped take a little bit of the pressure off of the teachers.
Right. And I'm gonna shifting and to your point though, Miss Mitchell, and shifting to Coach Spivey, kind of segueing with that. I know that your daughter, I think in her district, they did not continue. There were some school districts that did have some type of shifting of after, you know, March going into a learn from home approach, but there were some school districts that completely did not, you know, have the answer to the call. And so children completely stopped learning in March. So now they've gone from the second week of March through August, you know, some now September with nothing. You know, we already deal with during the summer kind of losing some of that knowledge anyway, but then to go from March now into August and September not having any instruction. And so, you know, to your point, Ms. Mitchell, I know that was going to be really difficult. And so hoping that people would take that approach, looking at it, because those kids didn't have, you know, anything, you know, some not having the access to technology, but then still, you know, to Lindsay's point, not having that accountability person to be able to see their well-being period during that time. And then them not getting the instruction. So Coach Spivey, are the practices for in-person learning working for you and your students at your school?
Well, let me put it like this. Let me start off by saying this. It's everybody's first year.
Right.
All right. The practices that we have to try to practice social distancing still. We can't go in the locker rooms. We can't go in the field house. It's not very beneficial because, you know, when we talk about sports, you have to have some type of hands-on to teach kids certain physical techniques.
Right.
And for the most part, it's the same way in the classroom. You know, you have different type of learners. Right. And that's what's being taken away right now. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of our students are virtual right now, and that's probably the safest thing that a lot of people think. But in our school district, really and truly, the safest thing for us is for a couple more kids to come to school, because the classrooms are empty, and you gonna have small interactions that helps most of those kids who have a learning disability, who needs that one-on-one time. And I think that, well, this is just my thinking, I think that the kids who have learning disabilities or IEPs with a lot of accommodations. They need to be at the school, and we should give the option for those kids who have who are more advanced the option to either come virtually or stay at home. Because at the end of the day, I think, well, I'm just speaking for because of my child, my 5-year-old. He's autistic, but he's very smart. But he needs to be at school. He needs to learn how to do stuff socially, but at the same time, he needs to be able to learn how to communicate better with a teacher that's face to face, rather than him having to do therapy, having to do all his schooling and schoolwork, virtually. Now we gotta, deal with a 5-year-old who says, I think I'm just gonna do this during this time. You got to try to keep them focused, but then at the same time, you got somebody like my father, who's a retired teacher, who has to try to keep him focused, and that's kind of difficult on both ends.
Right.
But just to get back to what you asked, it's a big hassle. I don't care what anybody says. It's a big hassle because even as a grown person, we all need some type of help hands-on, and we need to be, we have to be close to each other to kind of figure out certain things. And distance is not the best thing when it comes to learning.
So thank you for sharing that. You brought up some very good points, especially I think talking about the IEPs and the 504s. My education background is education, even though I worked in social work for many years. So trying to figure out certain things for Anasia is easier for me. And so being able to understand her 504 and try to make sure that, I have those conversations with the teacher or have those conversations with the assistant principal or whatever to make sure that she gets what she needs. There are some parents, first of all, who may not have even read the IEP or the 504 or understand it at all, but have made the choice to have their child learn virtually and not really being able to provide that support, what that support looks like. We want the teacher to provide that support, but then when the child is home, guess who is going to have to make sure that the child gets that support? The parent is going to have to make sure. And so I know that there's going to be, again, a deficit there with those children who need that extra assistance. But my burning question for you, Coach Spivey, what are football practices like? Are you all expecting to actually have a season, and what measures are the coaching staff taking to ensure that players remain safe?
All right, so we're going to have a season. Our season actually starts the last weekend in September in the state of Louisiana. It's been a lot of pressure that has been put on the governor, and I'm starting to see where our country, our states, our governors are basically ran by a sport. Like football is the leading.
Absolutely.
I can't even I can't even bring up the word, but football is the biggest influence for money when it comes to, biggest source of revenue when it comes to all states.
Right.
So when you think about funding high schools or funding junior highs, they have to charge to get into the game. You have to charge the concession stand. That's how they make their money. And in a lot of ways, everybody's looking at it as a money aspect and saying, okay, well, we need this so we can do this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, we're still putting our children in a predicament to where, okay, well, we don't know who they're exposed to when they go home. We don't know who they're hanging around when they go home. But then they expect us to be around these same kids every day. Oh, well, you'll be all right as long as you wear a mask. That's not guaranteed.
Right.
I need a hazmat suit. But
I mean, and you're exactly right, especially when you're talking about sweating. Now you're sweating and perspiring and everything, and so you know, and I know from what I just see from football athletes, you just kind of naturally share different things, water bottles and just things like that, kind of naturally, and so.
And that's another big thing. That when it came to the precaution that we had to go through during the summer this year, during the summer, the kids had to provide their own water bottles. So they had the gallon jugs, they had to put their names on, they had to get their temperatures checked at the gate before they came in. It could only be us and the kids. We couldn't have any outside people in. But at the same time, the numbers were limited. So it was 25 people that were allowed in an area. So what we did, we took everything, we put it outside. So they claim that if it's over 80 degrees, it kills the virus, kills the germs, that and the third. But we ended up having close to, I want to say 65 kids. So we ended up dividing them up in the offense, defense, and a freshman group. With us dividing them up, that put us right at that 25 person per group mark. And everybody just had a different thing that they had to do. But it also made workouts longer. Normally, we used to getting up early in the morning and you get it over with, you done by 10 o'clock. Nah, it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the evening. We doing full school days during the summer, just for football. We still have to prepare like we're going to have a season. Then we transitioned to school. School is virtual. For high school, it's A-Day, B-Day, based off of classification and last name. For junior high, it's virtual or face-to-face. And with virtual face-to-face, if you choose virtual, you have to stay virtual for 9 weeks. You can't come to school. If you choose face-to-face, then you can do face-to-face or you have the choice to go virtual. I want to say about 85% of our kids are virtual. And to me, I like the small classroom, but when it comes to teaching, I'm lost because I don't know if my students are getting everything they need to from virtually. I had to deal with hackers yesterday for the first time. We were doing, I was teaching a class. I had somebody come in, just start playing music, but they were using the kids' names. And I'm just like, what if they're stealing these kids' identity just by doing it? And to go back, our district already had a situation where they had a ransom in the area that was taken from a USB. So we had to stop using USBs and we had to move strictly to Google Classroom. So everything is off of Microsoft now. But it's just, it's overwhelming. I always sit there and say, I'm all right, I'm good. But at the same time, I need to vent sometimes. So our principal has provided on-campus therapy. That's one thing that I could say that's been great about this year. Our principal provided on-campus therapy. So we have counselors on campus if we ever have any problems, any situations, and we need to vent or we're not feeling good that day.
For the teachers?
Yeah, that's for the teachers.
Okay.
That's for the staff.
That's amazing and absolutely unheard of. That is amazing. Wow.
Right.
You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I said. Never heard of such.
Wow.
But that's what our principal did for us. But our principal is amazing. He's a young guy, 32 years old, but he's dealing with the same situations. He has 3 girls in school, one the same, close to the same age as my youngest daughter, and he has to deal with pretty much the same situations I have to deal with. And he always tells us, like, if you need to talk about anything, feel free to stop by the office, but at the same time, provide these counsels for y'all too. Awesome. And I'm not sure if y'all's area ended up doing this, but during the once we got out on March 16th, I remember because we were getting ready for a track meet. The next day, they just told us, well, we're not going to school. We'll resume school on April 14th. got back to April 14th. They didn't know what to do. And then when May came around, the last day of school, and we moved to phase 2, they made us come back. And then they made the announcement, all teachers will have to teach summer school. During summer school, that's when we found out, okay, well, we got to do Zoom meetings. And then it was like a trial and error. And that's when you found out, okay, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this when it comes to the fall. I want to do virtual, but at the end of the day, it's not that healthy.
So you didn't have a choice about teaching summer school?
You had no choice about teaching summer school at all. So it's like the continual learning that we were just talking about. We could be teaching, but who's to say that that kid was getting any of that information that you were, trying to prepare them, for the 8th grade for the 9th grade.
Wow. So
every day at 12 o'clock, I'm on Zoom. I'm getting ready for a meeting. Well, I'm getting ready for my Zoom meeting to teach a class for an hour a day. Wow. And it was that was overwhelming. You had kids who were just doing who knows what. We had some kids that was at football practice during the Zoom meeting, so they weren't paying attention during class. And it's a lot. I know I probably said a lot because I took a lot of time.
You needed to say it, apparently, though. You needed this time. I'm glad to be able to provide a safe space for my brother.
Yeah, Dezmond, I was going to piggyback off what you said as far as the Zoom meeting. That is very difficult because as a teacher in face-to-face, I go by body language. If I'm explaining something and I say, hey, does everybody understand? I can see that you're shaking your head, yes, but your eyes are telling me, no, I know you don't. And so in person, I can adjust my lesson based on the body language versus on Zoom is very difficult to gauge if the students are with me, because they can be looking at the screen and be looking at YouTube, on one screen. So it's more difficult to gauge their understanding unless they're verbal and ask questions.
Right.
And that's one thing that I always try to. That was the first lesson that I taught on the first day of school. Because actually this past week was our first week because we didn't go to school after our actual first day due to the hurricane. Our area was affected so bad. So this week we talked about the scientific method and how question was one of the biggest parts. And I told them, I said, the only way that we can solve problems, we have to ask questions. And in science, you're going to get asked a lot of questions.
Right.
And I need you to ask me a lot of questions so I know that you have an understanding. But it's still the same thing. Like, I'll see kids on there have a cover over their head, and then I'm like, hey, can you take the cover off your head? You can't get marked for your attendance if you got a cover over your head.
Like still in the bed, cover
take it off.
Head, or
yeah, like still in the bed.
Okay.
Like they're at home, so they feel like, hey, I don't have to do really too much. All I gotta do is just listen.
Oh, just kind of roll over. Okay.
Right. And you can't monitor what goes on at somebody else's house.
Right.
You can only monitor your classroom. But how can you monitor your classroom virtually?
Right.
So, it's a lot, but
okay,
just roll with the punches. I guess that's the only thing we can do.
Well, thank you for being so open about everything. And I had no idea. I was like, yeah, look at my baby brother trying to make this extra money with summer school. I didn't know he didn't have a choice. Wow. Wow. Okay. So Ms. Morris, you've chimed in already. Is there anything else, any other concerns or challenges, particularly from a math? What subject do you teach?
I teach Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus, and Calculus.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, I was a student in high school math that I would not have been able to do virtual math, period. No way. I hardly could do it in person. So I know that I could not have done it virtually. So, from a teaching aspect and from, your students, what are your thoughts?
So again, the engagement piece is really just trying to balance that. Like I'm more of a stickler online. So like Dezmond was saying, how the students will come with their blankets on. I tell my students, hey, I need to see your notebook. I need to see your pencil. I need to make sure that you are taking notes. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to teach you and make sure that you are participating. And so I am as strict as I can be online. And for the most part, they participate with that. But again, the biggest challenge is, do they really understand? I have a few that are verbal, but I do have some students that are introverts and are afraid to ask questions. So that's the most difficult part, just checking for understanding as I'm giving notes and things like that.
Okay. Wow. Hats off to you. Hats off to you for it, definitely. And I'm gonna kind of talk about the parent aspect in just a minute. I want to kind of keep moving because Dr. DJ is gonna have to leave us very soon. But while we're talking about high school, Allyah, can you chime in on what your experience is like here in Georgia and how you're adjusting to it?
So yeah, it's personally for me really hard. I decided to do the hybrid option, and I find myself getting because I'm used to either being all at school or when we were online, all online. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, okay, I have to work just as much in school and then come home and do the same thing. You kind of get like discouraged and stuff like that. But as far as being a senior and dealing with the high school, last year I know we got out in May, and we were supposed to get kind of a rundown on what it was going to be like senior year and the stuff that we have to prepare for and stuff. And I know everybody has stuff to worry about with the COVID and stuff like that. But as far as anything like graduation, caps, gowns, senior pictures, I have no idea about any of that stuff. They haven't really talked about it. It's just been all about COVID and stuff. And with me trying to worry about what I'm supposed to put on my, for applying to colleges, like my clubs and everything that I had going on last year. And I was in the process of starting my own club and stuff like that. And all of that got canceled because we're not allowed to do any of that stuff. And all of my extracurricular activities, my volunteering and stuff like that all got canceled also. So I'm just trying to figure out a way that I can still have a good senior year and while dealing with this COVID thing at the same time.
Wow. So. Yeah, that's a lot to think about, because I know you and I went out together to buy your dress for prom that you didn't end up going to. Yeah, and so just kind of thinking from that, perspective, because your junior and your senior year, of high school are milestone years, those years, all the things that, this little one looks at, when we're out eating and the people are there from prom. I can't wait until, I'm a junior or a senior to have that experience. And that, as well she should, but now being in that place and not knowing if you're going to have that experience or not. So I so hate that, for you, and definitely praying for you, just, trying to balance it all, and then just kind of talking about you being discouraged. Please just stay encouraged, and if you need to talk to anybody, just find those people that you can talk to. I'm only a phone call away, text away. You already know that. And so anyway, so just thank you so much for just being vulnerable and just talking to us or whatever. Maybe you can chime in some more. And so while we're in high school, Miss Bagsby, thank you for waiting patiently with us. I know you had something else this morning. I'm going to ask you kind of that same question. What is your greatest concern or your challenges from a counselor's perspective in high school this year? And you're there in Texas.
Yes. Good morning to everyone. Yeah, I work in a high school that, just like everyone else probably has mentioned, facing unknown challenges that we just don't know kind of what will come about. But so far, I think it's just been on our end trying to arrange a school schedule as far as scheduling given this pandemic. Our students have the options of virtual learning or coming to school every day, 5 days a week, just like regular. And so initially we had a set number of students that were to come back, and that changed. And a lot more students came back. So we had to revamp in a matter of days everything that we had originally prepared for, which we weren't even ready for just because of the nature of this pandemic. So that has been a great challenge. Since we started school, we've been in school now probably 3 or 4 weeks. Mental health concerns have already started to come up related to students being at home and us not having that personal contact with them being at school where we can just call them down, have those conversations, engage in counseling sessions, do whatever we need to do to address their needs with them being home, trying to contact them, trying to keep that communication, trying to be in touch with parents just because of distance learning. So that's been a challenge. I think communication overall is also a challenge. And I would say this, as far as our school and as far as our district, there's so much going on, so many issues that everybody from top our district on down are trying to face, that communication has suffered. And so, with anything, anytime you're not communicating well, you're going to run into additional challenges. So on my side, I have a teenage daughter, and the challenges for her, she's doing virtual learning at home. And I'm concerned about the social aspect. She's a social butterfly. So I'm worried about her developing socially. So I've been really proactive trying to make sure that she is reaching out to her friends, that even socially distanced, she's able to talk and visit with them. As far as academically, I think she's doing okay, but I think someone mentioned about, as a teacher, having that connection and being able to connect with them face to face. That part of it, I'm concerned about her as a parent, that she has those connections with her teachers, because they don't do live instruction at her school at all. So it's all through their platform, which is Schoology. They get on there, do their work. And so I'm intentionally telling her, you need to go to office hours. So even through an online platform, you can visit with your teacher and have that one-on-one connection.
Yeah. So you were saying from your daughter's, the 10th graders perspective, just not having that social interaction. Can you see it as a mother in her?
So far, I haven't seen anything that I'm overly concerned about, but just in conversations, she might mention, well, this friend is back at school and they're doing this or they're doing that. And it just makes me wonder as a parent, how much of that is she missing? And I've kind of been even thinking about, should we consider at some point in the school year sending her back just for the social part? I think academically, I'm going to make sure she's fine academically. But because I just don't want her to miss out on anything socially as far as her development. I think that's critical academically as well as social and the mental and all of those other things. So, so far, no, but I'm keeping my eyes on it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's something that I could say. I mean, I jokingly said it, but I also thought maybe it would be, a good thing for her, but of course we haven't made that decision. We'll stay. And her response to me is, Mom, I want to stay home. So just pray for me. So Dr. Dycus